Your Vice President and Director of Research at the Committee for Economic Development. Just to recap for everybody, in case they were living in a cave, Ross was supposed to go to negotiate long-term contracts to boost sales of ag and energy. This was all after Liu He came to Washington and had a round of talks with Steve Mnuchin. They said there's a truce, time out. Then, of course, before Wilbur Ross makes the trip, the U.S. president says, I'm going to slap him with tariffs nevertheless. So what do you make of all of this? And now we have China saying, basically, they had this warning, all economic and trade outcomes of the talks will not take effect if the U.S. side imposes any trade sanctions, including raising tariffs. It sounds like they're kind of tired of this back and forth, the flip-flopping.
Not surprising. The problem that we have in this country is we have a president who says that he wants to be unpredictable. Well, he is. He seems to be changing his mind on his own. It's not that he's responding to any stimuli from somewhere around the world. One day we have a truce, the next day we have a trade war. And people around the world, and China's no exception, but we have Canada and Mexico at the gate as well, are upset by the fact that there is no predictability and there does not appear to be principle, there does not appear to be a continuing step-by-step process. It's discontinuous, it's unpredictable. And how do you react in that fashion? It's a very difficult way to do business.
He had his taunts, the Rocket Man taunts against Kim Jong-un. Now there's going to be talks. They may end up with an agreement. He may see this as an effective strategy, but when it comes to trade, it isn't, is it?
It really isn't, because you're affecting markets. You're creating uncertainty to which businesses react by pulling in their horns. They don't make investments, they don't make commitments, and this is going on for, an extended period of time. How long, we don't know, but we're in this adversarial relationship where the president has made statements about imposing tariffs. Other sovereign nations do not want to allow their standing to be eroded, so they are going to retaliate. How long does that process go on? How many rounds of tariffs, one after the other? And what is then the implication for, you start out with tariffs on steel and aluminum, but then you have retaliation in other markets, retaliation in yet other markets. And by the time you're done, the amount of goods and services and materials that are affected is much greater than where you started. Sounds small at the beginning, but it gets worse.
Right. Zhao Young was pointing out, according to the S&P Global Ratings, they say 80,000 jobs could be lost here in the United States. But beyond that, you've got the G7 coming up in Canada. And a lot of people are saying it's actually going to be the G6+1, that the U.S. is going to be isolated. The French finance minister said this, what this G7 is going to show is that the U.S. is alone against everyone, and especially alone against allies. The strategy of firing off tariffs in every direction is managing to infuriate countries that do trade with the United States. And it is, isn't it?
It really is, and it's very sad, but we pulled back from the TPP. We're threatening our partners in NAFTA. We have, I believe, some legitimate concerns about China's trade practices, but those are concerns that are shared around the world. We could have a more constructive dialogue if the United States cooperated with its allies and we had all these nations around the table trying to solve the problems. The United States has backed off to this alternative view where we want to have bilateral agreements with every individual nation. We do not have the negotiating capacity to do that in a world that is moving at the speed of light in terms of changes in technology, trade, and commerce. So it's making life very difficult.
Moving fast and interconnected. Joe, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.